So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services are refined in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzaielic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast to the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. Let's then start with a very known situation regarding then the Islamic world and the brothers and the sons of Ishmael. Once again, Ishmael was a king. Let's understand this factor first. Let's then evaluate what went on with Ibrahim and the time he went to Egypt. He then, because of the famine on the land, he went to Egypt, and he brought his wife with him, Sarah. However, Sarah could not bear children, so the objective of Ibrahim at the time was to get rid of her. He knew that it was a promise from the Holy Creator, but she couldn't bear children. So he tries to get rid of her. However, the divine presence came down and then changed the situation a bit. So he came out of Egypt, very wealthy, and then he fought a war. Along with the situation of Egypt, also he fought a war. And he came out very prosperous. Then he had a son with Hagar, because his wife couldn't bear children. And he was very much loved. There was no tensions in the tent. It was absolutely clear and clean. And then when Ishmael was already of age, roughly around 40 years old or so, then he went out. And then obviously Ibrahim gave him an inheritance, and then he opened up his own trading company. That's the sons of trade, merchants, doing trade via the understanding and guidance from heaven, because Ishmael had half of the anointing of Ibrahim. Then later on, Ibrahim and his wife Sarah continue on. Obviously, Hagar stayed with her son, but Ibrahim had to go on. Then later on, Ibrahim and Sarah, they had a son, Yitzhak, and he was also very loved. He was then from the lineage of Ibrahim and came out the lineage of the Creator's Son himself, thus tabernacling. But let's then understand another factor regarding then governments. Where do we find government from these couple of sons? Was then Ishmael a king? Yes, he was. Did he have his own country? No. As we can understand, they did not have any country of his own name. But we do know for sure he had a trading company, and the Ishmaelites were very prominent on the land because there were caravans everywhere. And the very caravan of the Ishmaelites brought Joseph into Egypt. But you don't find a precise country or kingdom bearing the name of Ishmael. There were later on kings from the lineage of Ishmael, and they were then kings of many regions. But from the sons of Ibrahim, do we find a nation of Ishmael? No, you don't find it. Regarding the second son, what do we understand of him came the lineage of tabernacling. Is it a form of government? Absolutely yes. It is a form of government. It is a government, do you think, ruling this world? No. The kingdom to come government does not rule this world. The kingdom to come government simply gives advices regarding this age. The ruler of this world is Nahashatan. So then, let's establish what goes on as far as tabernacling. Let's read then from Romans. Shaliach Shaul then was in Rome for quite some time, and he was in prison, and he had many understandings during the time he was in prison, awaiting for his turn. And he was obviously during this time very acquainted with the Romans as a very obedient group of Gentiles. Shaliach Shaul was very pleased of having such Gentiles leaned towards tabernacling. But let's read then Romans regarding the time where then Shaliach Shaul was explaining the completion of the spring feast, and then understand why so many people came to him for instructions. Let's read then. Let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government. This translation is from the Israelic lineage, says translation. Now let's read from the Greco-Roman translation. Let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the government. There is a huge distinction. What we should be reading is, let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government. This means the Hebrews, when they get together and they form a holy city. A holy city is the kingdom to come government's governing place. So then, you find the first son, Yishmael, a person of trade, and you find the second son, then tabernacling, giving directives of how this world should act trade-wise, so harmony then can be part of it. That's the first section. What is the second section regarding the time of the restoration period? Let's understand firstly the desire of the United States of once again trying to control the world's situation. He visited Estonia and many other places. He's involved with NATO and many other countries. They try to re-establish and regather the 1,000 years of the seat, and then try to enforce it. Honestly, these people, the President of US or then the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and many of these other leaders of those countries, they were never military people. They have no knowledge of military. They have no experience as a military person. So sometimes they make harsh decisions based from their own sentimentality. Let's be extremely clear with this. The journalist, the American journalist that was beheaded, he was aware of the dangers of his work. He signed there a document, and he was much aware of the areas he was placing himself into, and the danger of his life being in danger. Well, he caught in the hands of the other side and he was slaughtered. Very popular amongst soldiers. You get yourself in trouble, sometimes you get slaughtered. Now, US is going through a very tough time in their economics. People of the world, they always knew mostly the functioning portion of this country, the Northern Americans. They thrive when there are conflicts and war and destruction. So, what is going on with this? Because of these beheaded journalists aware of the dangers, then a war has started against Islam. Quite interesting then, Great Britain obviously was involved with this, and the situation becomes a drag. Let's then pause for a moment and evaluate what China is doing. Very wisely. China then have to put up with this nonsense. However, Thursday, they have placed in the space a couple of more units. One of them related with multimedia, the other was related with weather. More equipment in space. Now, it was explained many times before, the new system and the signal of China, related with the system coming via internet for purchasing and investment. While US and the other countries are trying to go around and portraying themselves as big shots and trying to control other people and enjoying and glorifying war for the benefit of their own countries, China is doing what the holy instructions then simply is teaching. They are being merchants. Isn't it amazing the similarities of the time of Rome and also the United States? Always clinging to another war, another conflict. Then they're trying to gather themselves because of a journalist that lost his head. What about those many boys and girls that died on the combat field? Now the president hears a few words from a person that is about to die and gets bent out of shape. It moves the entire world, and then NATO and other countries involved in going against Islam. What about the soldiers that were real soldiers and lost their legs, their arms? What do they get? Not even a thank you. So then, China has placed this equipment in orbit for the purposes of the trade yet coming. While then the West and the Europeans are trying to enforce themselves of the 1,000 years of deceit and doing things as they used to do, they understand in the very core of themselves it won't work. Let's then evaluate regarding then the merchants and then the authorities of the kingdom to come government. For instance, US has built the Ozarks, the new capital of the United States, underground, mostly. Caves everywhere. In the very center of the US, sections of Arkansas and 4 states in the very center of the US. That's where then the Ozarks is situated at. And it is 12 cities underground with 12 gates. Isn't that quite crazy? A nation so capable, yet so ridiculous. What kind of a scripture they were reading that made them build this scoundrelous place? Had to be the Greco-Roman translation. And then they try to wage war from far away with hopes that their economy would improve. It won't improve. The sons of Ishmael must rule. And there is a reason why Islam is the way it is. As far as we can read from this instruction, Shaliach Shaul was then teaching his people, and then they were forming groups of people, and they were functioning during this time. 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. The Greco-Roman translation, for some reason, they have even plus. They have a couple more what they say as gifts. The gift of faith and the gift of teaching. And they never realized there is a link with the revelation regarding the 7 spirits of Elohim. Oops, what did they do with the other 2? As he was then explaining these factors to his people, Shaliach Shaul then mentioned what was going on and his experience regarding then the completion of the spring feast and then the understanding of the times and the seasons spoken of in Hebrews, for instance, and the prophetic shadow events yet coming in the future. And then, as they were enlightened by the holy instructions, then some of them began functioning. As this was going on, many people from many other parts of the world came to their presence asking for direction. That's why then Shaliach Shaul has mentioned, let every soul then be subjective to the government of the kingdom to come. The Greco-Romans later, when they translated, they wanted the benefits for themselves. What do? They say, let every soul be subjected to the government, meaning themselves, excluding then the holy cities. Now they were wrong. Let every soul then be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government. Then you shalt receive direction. The whole objective of the holy cities is then giving direction. So then, you find then the nations of Europe and the West trying again to enforce the same junk of the 1,000 years of deceit. And truly they are desperate, because the European Union is not working either. The West is not working either. Many nations are bankrupt. And the world the world is searching for direction. Let's then understand the importance of the sons of Ishmael receiving their authority as far as trade is concerned. The 62nd chapter of Yeshayahu explains the restoration. 37th chapter of Ezekiel explains. And there are so many other scores of verses regarding then the restoration and the beauty of doing trade as per the instructions of the kingdom to come government. Sometimes the Ishmaelites of the older times, they did not have this understanding of the kingdom to come government, but Ibrahim taught them. And Ibrahim was anointed. Because of these, then these nations, they're trying to do what they always did, doing right or not. They have the printing machine on their side, so then they do whatever they want, and they expect obedience from the people, as if you were reading then Romans. But the problem is, the Greco-Roman translation was not translated properly. So Shaliach Shaul has said, let every person be subjected to the authority of the kingdom to come government. In order to enforce these, then a system of trade must be available in every computer, where you become then a banker, an investor, a CEO at the same time. As long as you are responsible, you are a combination of titles. Truly it is a privilege. You don't have to own a bank, because there is no more reason for having a bank. You can get virtual monetary systems in your own computer. You can invest with it, you can receive with it. Only give a bit more time. Some other 20 months or so, you are going to observe this in your own computer. China is not playing games. Because of these comes another topic, very important. Why was then the Messiah so involved with his people, yet he did not do much trade himself? We should evaluate this next time, so please stay tuned. Much more coming up.